I wanted to experience the Bible in the land where it was born.
Are you saying that the Bible is saying that this is the Garden of Eden?
I wanted to walk in the footsteps of its characters, to follow the paths they took in developing a relationship with God.
What you found indicates that the ark came to rest on this mountain.
Yes.
In my journey, I sought the answers to the Bible's eternal questions in the locations where they were first asked.
Yeah, I'm a man of the desert.
Well, I'm a man of the map, and the map doesn't know where we are.
Well, map is not detailed enough. Just trust me.
My quest began in the birthplace of civilization, the ancient rivers of Mesopotamia, where the Bible sets the story of creation.
God said, "Let there be light," and there was light.
My travels took me from the highest point in the Middle East, Mount Ararat, to the lowest point on Earth, the Dead Sea.
So you got the pillar here, okay? You've got the sea there, and you've got this salty earth everywhere. Is this Sodom and Gomorrah?
What I discovered is that here is where the Bible was born, its message inspired by the land from which it sprang.
This program was made possible by contributions to your PBS station from viewers like you. Thank you.
The Bible is a living story. It is a tale of good and evil, love and hate, slavery and freedom, and above all, the worship of one God. Join me now on a 10,000-mile adventure through the greatest story ever told. Jerusalem, one of the oldest and holiest cities on earth. Jews, Christians, Muslims, three faiths sharing one city and one God. And the place that brought me back to the Bible. I grew up reading the Bible, but over time, it became a book gathering dust on a shelf with little relevance to my life.
Nice to see you. Could I have 100 grams?
I was more attached to things I experienced firsthand.
Only 100 grams. Only 100 grams.
As a writer, I traveled around the world, immersing myself in different cultures: Japan, England, country music, the circus, and then wrote books about them.
Then I came here. A friend of mine was giving me a tour of the city, and he brought me to the spot and pointed to that golden dome. That's where Abraham went to sacrifice Isaac, he said. And it just struck me. You mean those stories are real? They happened in real places I can visit and feel?
I had an idea. What if I walked the Bible? What if I actually went to the places where its stories occurred? Could I find the Garden of Eden? Climb the mountain where Noah's Ark came to rest? Travel the path that Abraham took to the Promised Land? Few people thought this was a good idea. It was too risky, they said. Actual archaeological evidence of these places is difficult to find. And most of the ancient sites are located in the region of today's greatest conflicts. I sought the advice of the esteemed archaeologist Trudy Dotan. She'd spent her life working to unearth the secrets of this ancient land.
Well, it's a bizarre idea, I would say.
And can you do it? It's a good question. It's not one of the easiest things.
She suggested I take someone with me.
Maybe there is one person that I know very well, since he was a small boy, coming here already 3-4-year-old, interested in archaeology, and both my husband and I are archaeologists. And he has really seen these places and knows them, and knows the Bible, and knows the terrain, and knows the background, the history. It's very alive with him.
Avner Goren is an archaeologist, an adventurer. He speaks 5 languages. For 15 years, he was the chief archaeologist of the Sinai Desert. Avner knows every grain of sand in these deserts. He knows every verse of the Bible. He knows every inch of the Middle East.
Okay.
And I'd find he knew the answers, even when I didn't know the questions.
Hey, I'm a man of the desert.
Well, I'm a man of the map, and the map doesn't know where we are.
Well, map is not detailed enough. Just trust me.
When you read a great book, you start at the beginning. In this case, the first 5 books of the Bible, also known as the Torah. I was surprised to find that the first words in the Bible are actually said far from the holy city of Jerusalem. Avner led us to eastern Turkey.
This is the Euphrates, the great river, and not far from here to the east is the Tigris. The Greeks called this piece of land Mesopotamia, the land in between the rivers. And here everything started.
The Tigris and Euphrates are not long as rivers go, but they are strategically placed. They were why we had come. The most important revolution in history, Avner said, the agricultural revolution, occurred on these riverbanks over 10,000 years ago. For more than 1 million years, humans had survived by wandering from place to place, hunting and gathering. Now they began to settle in one place. I asked Avner why he thought these rivers were so important.
They are important because civilization started here 10,000 years ago when people started to cultivate around here using the water of the rivers for agriculture. The life changed completely. They didn't have to hunt, they didn't have to gather. They started to live in one place and cultivate the area around. And what they got then, something that they never had before, and that is free time.
What they did with that free time was tell themselves stories. 5,000 years ago, further down these rivers, writing was invented in the ancient cities of Sumer and Babylon in southern Iraq today. They used writing to record their stories. Many of these stories dealt with the mysteries of life. Where did we come from? How were we created? And they involved gods, battles, and especially water. The greatest of these tales became the most influential story ever told.
I'm all nervous, actually. My body is tingling. Here we are, sitting by the bank.
The moment had finally come
About to read the Bible for the first
to start reading the story in the place where it occurred.
What I want you to do is listen to the sound of the
Reading
river.
in the original Hebrew, Avner began with the opening line of Genesis.
בראשית ברא אלוהים את השמיים ואת הארץ. והארץ הייתה תוהו ובוהו וחושך.
When God began to create heaven and earth, the earth being unformed and void, with darkness over the surface of the deep, and a wind from God sweeping over the water, God said, "Let there be light." And there was light. Here we are in the first sentence of Genesis, and the Bible's saying these stories didn't happen anywhere. They happened here, in Mesopotamia.
I always thought the Bible happened in some netherworld, before time, before place. I'm beginning to realize that the imagery of creation, the idea of earth emerging from a watery chaos, even some of the words themselves come directly from Mesopotamia. You'd think this might undermine the Bible, but to me, it actually makes it more appealing. It connects the Bible to the world around it, yet introduces this new element that's different from all those stories. God. In Genesis 1, the Bible tells the story of how God creates the world.
In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. Then God said, "Let the waters under the heavens be gathered together unto one place, and let the dry land appear." And it was so. Then God said, "Let the earth bring forth grass. Let the earth bring forth the living creature." Then God said, "Let us make man in our image." And the Lord God planted a garden eastward in Eden, and there he put the man whom he had formed.
The Bible says 4 rivers flow through the Garden of Eden. Only 2 are known, the Tigris and the Euphrates.
First thing in the Bible after creation is the Garden of Eden. And the Garden of Eden is water.
Wait a minute, are you saying that the Bible is saying that this is the Garden of Eden?
The Bible doesn't say that this is the Garden of Eden, but the Bible says that it is in the land of the rivers, in Mesopotamia.
You know, what's interesting about this is when I was a kid growing up, the image that I had of the Garden of Eden was this plush garden with these trees and these bushes and all these roses and flowers. But I'm beginning to see from what we've seen that the paradise is not this English garden. It really is this watery paradise almost. Though we were only in the 2nd chapter of Genesis, already the Bible was rooting itself firmly in a particular time and place. The stories reached out to me saying, they happened here. They come from the life of the rivers. Stories like rivers give life. They can also take life away. With so much focus on rivers, it was only natural that ancient storytellers focus on one side effect, floods. We were ready to explore the next great story in the Bible.
Then the Lord saw that the wickedness of man was great in the earth, and that every intent of the thoughts of his heart was only evil.
For 2 uneasy days, we traveled deep into ancient Mesopotamia, the Kurdish war zone, where tens of thousands have died in recent decades in a largely overlooked war. Now part of the strife-ridden lands of Syria and Iraq.
And the Lord was sorry that he had made man on earth, and he was grieved in his heart. So the Lord said, "I will destroy man whom I have created." But Noah found grace in the eyes of the Lord.
Mount Ararat will forever be identified with the story of Noah's Ark. And it is the first place in the Bible that can be located with any certainty.
Here it is. You can just see it now.
Wow, it's so much taller than everything else around it.
It's a great mountain.
Mount Ararat is a perfect volcano, 17,000 feet high. It is by far the highest mountain in the Middle East. Seeing it, I thought this surely is the first piece of land that would have emerged out of the water. Though we were driving into the ancient past, the mystery of Ararat is still part of the present. Hundreds of websites track the quest to find Noah's Ark. So for as long as the story has been told, people have been trying to figure out what happened to the Ark. So if I type in here, Noah's Ark search, whew, look at all that, I'll click on this. So here's a list, it's like 20 people. It looks like Marco Polo was here in 1254. In 1917, Tsar Nicholas led an expedition. They said his daughter, Anastasia, actually wore an Ark necklace. And then it looks like all these pictures were taken in the 50s. And then even as late as 1977, it looks like Jimmy Carter flew over the mountain on his way to meet the Shah of Iran. Today, Mount Ararat continues to beckon. But the Turks have officially closed off the mountain, in part because of smuggling into Iran. But unofficially, I was told if I wanted to set foot on the mountain with any degree of safety, I had to see one man, a Kurd who was the unofficial mayor of the mountain. He supposedly knew how to get such things done. And today, he was at a wedding. Before he would meet with me, though, I was told I must dance. Ararat is so important to the Kurds who live here. They like to hold their weddings in the presence of the mountain. The man of mystery finally appeared. He wouldn't tell me his name. He was known simply as Parachute. He wouldn't confirm rumors he had found Noah's Ark. He wouldn't even talk about Mount Ararat. But he would take me, he said, for a price. The following morning, we took off for the mountain that the Turks call Agri Dağ, the mountain of pain. Without Parachute's protection, I knew we could be arrested, or worse. The previous day, a visitor had died on its slopes. Noah's challenges, of course, were even greater. After tapping Noah, God instructs him to build an ark, which he should fill with 7 pairs of clean animals, presumably those considered kosher, and 2 of every other animal.
Noah was 600 years old when the floodwaters were on the earth. Every creeping thing that creeps went into the ark 2 by 2. Male and female of all flesh went in as God had commanded him. Now the flood was on the earth 40 days, and the waters prevailed on the earth 150 days.
Parachute had arranged for a horse caravan to take us to his home village, halfway up the mountain, where I hoped he'd finally talk to me about the ark. As we trekked, I pondered the mysteries of the story. For starters, where did all the water come from? Underwater volcanoes? Melting glaciers? And how did Noah build such a big ark?
As for size, the Bible says the ark should be 300 cubits long, 50 wide, and 40 tall. A cubit's the length from your elbow to your middle finger. Using 18 inches, that means the ark would have been the size of a soccer field 4 stories tall. That means the ark, built without metal, was half the size of the Titanic.
Most scholars, like Avner, consider the numbers of the Bible to be idealized. But this has not deterred enthusiasts. One issue, how could Noah save every species of animal? One theologian suggests that with common ancestry, Noah would have needed 3,700 mammals, 8,600 birds, and 6,300 reptiles. So could one family and all these animals fit onto one boat?
With the animals, one study concluded birds and rodents would have been on the top deck, lions and tigers on one side of the second deck, hippos and rhinos on the other, elephants and giraffes in between. The bottom deck would have been empty because during their year on the ark, the animals generated 600 tons of manure.
In my head, I could easily dismiss the idea that a wooden boat could survive thousands of years. Yet now that I was here, I couldn't resist the romance of the quest, which may be what Parachute was banking on. He claimed that during a climb up the North Face a few years ago, he found a piece of wood, 5,000 years old, that was part of Noah's Ark. At a rest stop, I tried to get more out of him.
So first of all, where is this thing that you found?
It's not necessary to tell the people.
You believe that what you found indicates that the ark came to rest on this mountain.
Yes.
So will you take me there?
No.
Will you show me pictures?
No.
I'm not sure I believe you.
As you like it. You don't have to. But if you believe something, you must believe in your feeling.
We're
You
halfway
don't
up the
have to
mountain.
believe, and I don't want to show you. It's impossible.
Our conversation left me unnerved. The chances that Parachute had found remains of Noah's actual ark seemed remote. Besides, as the unofficial mayor of the mountain, he had a vested interest in promoting tourism.
So what do you think? You think he's got the ark?
I'm not sure at all.
There's something mysterious. I mean, part of me thinks yes, and part of me thinks no, he just wants to control the mountain.
Does it really matter?
What do you mean it doesn't matter? Of course it matters. This is why we came here.
It's not why we came here. We came here to see the tradition needs a place.
Maybe Avner was right. Finding the ark may not be so important. What's important was that people who told the story of Noah understood the landscape they were talking about. And the story was still alive in this place. The people who live here are still connected to it. That night, we were invited to hear a singer recounting the local legends of the mountain. So, what do you know about Noah's Ark?
As far as we were told by our ancestors, while Noah was building the ark, people were making fun of him. What we know from our ancestors is that Noah went up to the mountaintop.
So that would have happened 5,000 years ago to Noah. Do you think that the spirit of Noah still lives on this mountain?
I'm very sure that it's on this mountain, because they have found the evidence of what is thought to be a wooden ship.
So even if I don't find the ark on this mountain, I should still believe in Noah.
I just believe it. The evidence makes me believe that Noah's Ark is on this mountain.
The longer I spent on Mount Ararat, the more I realized my whole relationship to the Bible was changing. I think of myself as a rational person, and in many ways, scientific questions drew me into this quest. Is this really where Noah's Ark landed? How did Moses split the Red Sea? But now that I'm here, I'm beginning to realize that science can't answer all of those questions. Even if I did find a piece of Noah's Ark, and even if I could prove it was 5,000 years old, and even if I found a piece of wood that said Noah built me, I'm still not going to prove that God ordered Noah to build it. Okay, so I get that, but still, it's hard to let go of that comfort of science. If I give up that, what am I looking for? Genesis 8 says that after the flood, Noah builds an altar to God. Never again will I doom the earth because of man, God says.
Then the Lord said in his heart, I will never again curse the ground anymore for man's sake. While the earth remains, seed time and harvest, cold and heat, summer and winter, and day and night shall not cease. So God blessed Noah and his sons and said to them, Be fruitful and multiply, and fill the earth. And as for me, behold, I establish my covenant with you and your descendants after you.
After Noah, the Bible turns in a new direction, to the family that will dominate the story for the next 2,000 years.
we headed southwest across Turkey toward the Syrian border. Our destination was the town of Şanlıurfa. For 10 generations, Noah's descendants multiply, the Bible says, moving northeast through Mesopotamia. Some traditions suggest they may have settled here in Şanlıurfa. Today, Şanlıurfa is a frontier town, filled with places for travelers to rest and replenish their spirits. Many of these travelers come because they believe Şanlıurfa is connected to one of the Bible's most important figures. God's early experience with humans has been disappointing. He kicks Adam and Eve from Eden. He destroys humanity with a flood. Now, in Genesis 11, he finds a new partner. He will be known as Abraham. We first meet Abraham in the Bible when he's 75 years old, married to Sarah, and they've been unable to have a child. There's nothing in the book of Genesis about his early life. But Islamic legend suggests Abraham was born here in Şanlıurfa. In the center of town, a door leading to a cave marks his reputed birthplace. Abraham is considered the patriarch of Jews, Christians, and Muslims, all of whom trace their lineage back to him. He is revered because he is the first person to believe in monotheism, the power of a single, invisible God. Muslims mention the prophet Abraham 5 times a day in daily prayers. They call him God's friend. Since the Bible doesn't tell us anything about Abraham as a boy, scores of legends have popped up over the centuries, especially how a young boy's faith was tested and survived ever stronger. An Islamic version of one of these stories is set right here at the mosque. We heard the ancient tale from the guardian of the carp pond.
One day, young Abraham is caught throwing stones at the idols worshipped by the king. He explains to the king that worshipping idols is not right, because there is only one God for everyone. The king is so angry, he flings Abraham into a fire, but then God works some magic. He turns the flames into water and the firewood into fish. And that is how Abraham was rescued by God.
The carp here are said to be descendants of the original fish. And legend has it, if you eat one, you will go blind. A fate that supposedly befell 2 soldiers as recently as 1989. We headed 30 miles southwest of Şanlıurfa to Haran. It's the setting of one of the most famous passages in the Bible, the place where God first speaks to Abraham.
And they came to Haran and dwelt there. Now the Lord said to Abraham, "Get out of your father's house to a land that I will show you. I will make you a great nation. I will bless you and make your name great."
One of the oldest cities on earth, Haran was abandoned at the time of the Crusades. In the early 1900s, the site was rediscovered.
This is a medieval mosque.
This is what Lawrence of Arabia discovered when he was still at Oxford.
Yeah, as a young man.
Haran was a large and thriving metropolis that stood at an important crossroads in the ancient world. Scholars agree that Abraham would have lived here around 4,000 years ago. It might have been drought or other hard times that brought him and his family across the desert to Haran, where they settled down. So this area would have been settled when Abraham was here?
Oh yes, it was settled much before him and continued much after him. Look over there. It was a huge, huge city covering the whole area to the edge of the mound.
The nearby village seemed frozen in time. These mud brick huts were built centuries ago. Inside one of the houses, we met a local singer, blind since birth, who had written a special tribute to Abraham. He sang of Abraham's belief in God, the one true God who created the world. For him, Abraham's legacy is forever connected to this land. I too was beginning to feel this incredible pull from the landscape, this feeling of deep connection to the land. For my whole life, I felt connected to the place where I was born. I was this traveler. I would go out, and then I would bounce back home. I was like a bungee cord. Now, for the first time, I felt that cord catch in another place. It's as if I found a home I didn't even know I was looking for. And when I went back to the Bible, I realized that the Hebrew word for Adam is Adamah, earth. From dust you are, God says to Adam, to dust you shall return. The Bible seems to be saying with these very words that we come from these places. We're made from these places, and we carry these places around within us. Abraham is living in Haran when God, in Genesis 12, suddenly, without warning, makes him an extraordinary offer. As a boy, I learned this Bible passage for my bar mitzvah. Here, now, it came alive. The Lord said to Abram, "Go forth from your native land and from your father's house to the land that I will show you. I will make of you a great nation, and I will bless you." The thing that's always baffled me about this line is that God doesn't introduce himself. It's not like Moses, who gets the voice of God in a burning bush. God just says, "Go," and Abraham goes. Why?
The Bible does not explain that, but it is important to notice that Abraham had no doubts. The voice of God was powerful. He had faith.
The Bible doesn't say exactly how Abraham reached the Promised Land, traveling with his wife Sarah and other relatives. They almost assuredly walked along one of the many ancient trading routes. Avner and I set out by train.
Merhaba.
Merhaba.
İki bir lütfen. So we were.
Abraham's journey marks an end to the phase of the Bible that takes place in Mesopotamia. In obeying God's command to go forth, Abraham was leaving an area that was the core of civilization to a place that was just emerging. He's leaving Mesopotamia and the wealth of its rivers, the waters that nourished his forebears. In the new place, it won't be the power of water that will guide their destiny. It will be their belief in one God. And that's the start of a whole new cycle in the Bible. I'm beginning to see this pattern in the story, almost like creation, destruction, recreation. God creates the world, and then when Adam and Eve disappoint him, he destroys it and starts over. With Noah, he destroys the world again and then starts over. But now, with Abraham, by sending him away from Mesopotamia, it's like he destroys it, but when he says to Abraham that he will become the leader of a great nation, now it's almost as if God shares this creation with Abraham, and the two of them walk together, side by side, into this new part of the story. The more we followed Abraham's trail, the more his story was coming alive. I don't think when I read this story before, that until I was here, that I realized how much walking he actually did.
Well, this walking is part of living. It is not a march to reach a destination. It is a way of life.
Right,
So
right.
they move from a place, they build a tent here, they live there for a few months, they move again and again. So
he's not wandering in that nomad way where he's always moving. He goes, he stays for a while, then he moves again.
Yeah, pastorals are like the Bedouin of today.
From Ur up to Haran, that's a pretty established route. Now he's got to go from up here, this is modern day Turkey, all the way down here to Israel. Do we know what route he probably took?
Well, the Bible doesn't say anything about that. The Bible says Haran and then Immediately after, Abraham is already in the promised land in Israel, in Shechem.
Oh, no, it's amazing. Look, I mean, in Genesis 12:5, it says, Abram took his wife, and they set out for the land of Canaan. And in the next sentence, not even the next verse, it says, when they arrived in the land of Canaan. The Bible doesn't seem to care which way they went.
We cannot tell from the Bible where he went, and it doesn't matter very, very much.
So looking at the big picture, you've got here Mesopotamia, big empire. You've got Egypt down here, big power. Egypt would come and try to control the promised land for a while. Mesopotamia came and pushed them back and forth. So comes the moment when God wants to promise this land or some land to Abraham. He chooses this land because this land is occupied. It's got an empire. This land is occupied. It's got an empire. He chooses this land because really it's the only place that Abraham could reasonably be expected to control something.
It is also the only area in the whole region that doesn't have such a well-established faith and gods of its own. It's a fresh, new place that can be established again.
For the first time since we started, I felt a sense of contentment and peace. It wasn't just what I was learning about the history of the Bible. The landscape itself was beginning to give me answers. Answers to some internal longing I hadn't even identified. Some journeys we choose, I realized. Some journeys choose us. The land of Canaan, the promised land. 4,000 years ago, it was a green place with trees and fields of wheat and barley. As a pastoral nomad, Abraham would have settled outside large cities, near the edge of the desert, like these Judean hills south of Jerusalem. We were headed for a rendezvous with an old friend of Avner's, the noted archaeologist Gabi Barkai.
So Abraham may have been born around
I asked Gabi what the land would have been like 4,000 years ago.
It is a period which is rich in historical data. It is rich with artworks. It is rich with urban construction. We have massive fortifications. Whether this is the period that Abraham witnessed, I don't know. I wasn't there.
And Abraham took Sarah his wife, and Lot his brother's son, and all their substance that they had gathered, and the souls that they had gotten in Haran, and into the land of Canaan they came.
After Abraham arrives in the Promised Land, or Canaan, famine forces him to flee to Egypt. There, he grows wealthy and returns to Canaan, where he becomes a powerful leader, a warrior, a negotiator. Yet despite all his success, something is still missing from Abraham's life. "O Lord," Abraham cries, "what can you give me, seeing that I shall die childless?" At 85 years old, Abraham still does not have the son that God promised him long ago. His wife Sarah at the time is 75 and assumes she is barren. Following local custom, she offers Abraham her handmaid, Hagar, to produce a child. Soon, a son is born. His name is Ishmael. But then the story grows more complicated. In Genesis 18, God makes a special visit to Abraham's tent in the guise of 3 men. Following Bedouin tradition, Abraham orders a meal prepared. He tells Sarah, "Quick, 3 measures of choice flour. Knead and make cakes." As a reward, God tells Abraham that Sarah will also bear him a child. "Now that I am withered, am I to have enjoyment," she says, "with my husband so old?" Soon, Sarah gives birth to a son. His name is Isaac. Abraham now has 2 sons. Sarah grows jealous and forces Abraham to cast out Ishmael and Hagar into the desert. But not before God promises that Ishmael will become the leader of a great nation. As for Isaac, God will have a more challenging plan for him. So let me just ask you directly. Is the story of Abraham history or myth?
It's like a recipe for a cake. A certain percentage is myth, a certain amount, several spoons, are real history, several other spoons are anachronism. The question is, what is the percentage? What is the specific weight of each of these ingredients in the cake cooked for us in the book of Genesis? There are people who would dismiss the entire story. As we do not have the business card of Mr. Abraham, and as we do not find him in the telephone book of the city of Ur, where from he originated, then he is a myth. I don't think so.
Abraham dwelt in the land of Canaan, and Lot dwelt in the cities of the plain, and pitched his tent even as far as Sodom. But the men of Sodom were exceedingly wicked and sinful against the Lord.
The story of Abraham now led us to a place the Bible calls the Salt Sea, and we now call the Dead Sea. 310 meters, that's over 1,000 feet. That means we were in Mount Ararat, that's the highest spot in the Middle East.
And we are now approaching the Dead Sea, which is the lowest place of the Middle East and the world.
Abraham's nephew Lot lives in the town of Sodom, one of the biblical sin cities whose location has long been unknown. At the southern tip of the Dead Sea, Avner led me into a rare geological formation. Because the Dead Sea is so low, the water evaporates rapidly. The sea is 25% solids, 6 times saltier than the ocean. Now let me see if I can understand this. So you're saying that the Dead Sea, which is here, it pushes down on this layer of salt underneath the Dead Sea.
And those layers comes up along the fault.
Oh, and then that shoots up into this huge salt pillar. The resulting salt deposits scar the landscape for miles around. All Israeli schoolchildren call these formations Lot's wife. In Genesis 19, God is angered by the sinful behavior of the Sodomites and prepares to destroy the city. But first, he tries to save Abraham's nephew Lot and his family.
So it came to pass that he said, "Escape for your life. Do not look behind you, lest you be destroyed." Then the Lord rained brimstone and fire upon Sodom and Gomorrah from the Lord out of the heavens. So he overthrew all the inhabitants of the cities. But Lot's wife looked back behind him, and she became a pillar of salt.
Okay, so you got the pillar here, okay, you got the sea there, and this sulfurous earth all over the place. So is this Sodom and Gomorrah?
Well, obviously, we cannot tell where Sodom and Gomorrah were. But the area here is really the area that the story is talking about.
If you read the Bible in the place, it'll tell you a lot about the story. But what I'm also realizing is if you read the Bible in the place, it'll tell you about the place as well. I mean, you look at that, it's like the Bible is the greatest guidebook ever written. By setting their stories in real places, the biblical storytellers forged a sacred relationship among the people, the land, and God.
Look, Abraham is the founder of the nation to which I belong. He is the founder of the monotheistic belief. And just think about a man who, just at the order of God, packs up and goes to a foreign land about which he doesn't know a thing. this is the father of all believers. He is a symbol, and in his light we walk for millennia.
Now it came to pass that God tested Abraham. He said, "Take now your son Isaac, whom you love, and go to the land of Moriah, and offer him there as a burnt offering." So Abraham rose early in the morning and saddled his donkey and took 2 of his young men with him, and Isaac his son. And he split the wood for the burnt offering, and went to the place of which God had told him.
Our journey led us back to Jerusalem, believed to be the very place where God gives Abraham the ultimate test of faith. We decided to walk to the actual site where it may have happened, the Temple Mount, following the route Abraham might have taken. We arrived at Jerusalem's Dung Gate, one of 7 gates into the Old City. 2,000 years ago, these stairs led to the sacred site of the Temple, the Jewish holy shrine first built by Solomon. Jesus would have walked this same route during his visits to the city. Our pursuit of Abraham led us through the Jewish and Muslim quarters toward the Church of the Holy Sepulchre, which is located in the Christian quarter. So this distinction between the Jewish quarter, the Muslim quarter, the Christian quarter, and the Armenian quarter, when was that made?
That is last century's arrangement, though there were quarters even before that.
Last centuries means when?
Say 300 years.
The church is divided into different areas, each controlled by a rival Christian denomination. Holy Sepulchre stands over the places where it's believed Jesus was crucified, entombed, and resurrected. From the earliest years of Christianity, parallels have been drawn between Abraham's near sacrifice of Isaac and God's sacrifice of Jesus. We listened to a priest reading Abraham's story in ancient Greek.
And Abraham built an altar there, and bound Isaac his son, and laid him on the altar. And Abraham stretched out his hand and took the knife to slay his son. But the angel of the Lord called to him from heaven and said, "Abraham, Abraham, do not lay your hand on the lad, or do anything to him. For now I know that you fear God, since you have not withheld your son, your only son, from me." Then Abraham lifted his eyes and looked, and there behind him was a ram caught in a thicket by his horns. So Abraham went and took the ram and offered it up for a burnt offering instead of his son.
Abraham's near sacrifice of his son is one of the most profound stories in the Bible. And we were now about to go to the very spot where it's believed to have occurred, the Dome of the Rock on the Temple Mount. Because each religion considers it so sacred, the Temple Mount has become a notorious symbol of tension among Jews, Christians, and Muslims. Bloody violence has flared up in recent years, and non-Muslims have been forbidden to enter. Security was tight. But finally, we were allowed in. We were the first Western crew to be admitted in years, we were told. This may be the holiest place in this holiest of cities. For Jews, the site of Solomon's temple. For Christians, where Jesus walked. And for Muslims, the oldest surviving Islamic monument, the Dome of the Rock.
built to commemorate Muhammad's night journey to heaven. Though it's considered one of the jewels of Islamic architecture, the dome is most extraordinary because it's built over a bare patch of rock. On this very spot, Abraham is believed to have brought his son Isaac and prepared to follow God's overwhelming command. And therein, I realized, lay the power of the story. As we read it, we can't help but ask, what would I do in this situation?
You used to take these biblical walks with your father. What did he think of Abraham almost killing Isaac?
My father loved the story because it was the peak of Abraham's experience. In Haran, Abraham had a test of faith, but he got something in return, a nation. Here, he did it with no return. It was pure faith.
But there is this question. You're a father, you have a son and 2 daughters. Would you do it? Would you kill for God?
I don't know. For me, Abraham is unique, very special. That was the beginning. And I believe that today, God wouldn't put such a challenge in front of anyone.
For me, the answer to this specific question didn't matter so much as the fact that it forced me to examine my own relationship with God.
When I first set out on this journey to the roots of the Bible, I didn't know what to expect or what I would find. And now, though I'm only partway through, the Bible no longer seems distant to me. The stories are not happening to some faraway people in some long ago place. By visiting these places, I feel like I've entered the Bible.
What I had discovered by walking the Bible is that the stories are universal and have the remarkable ability, thousands of years after they were first written down, to become personal for each of us. My geographic adventure was turning into a very different kind of journey. These stories are only the beginning of our journey. Our next adventure takes us to Egypt to retrace the dramatic story of Abraham's great-grandson, Joseph.
The killing of the firstborn son, what caused that?
And his powerful dreams and visions. Into the great Nile Basin, where among its reeds and shallow waters begins the story of one of the Bible's greatest figures. It's the next chapter in the greatest story ever told.
If you would like to learn more about this program, Walking the Bible, visit pbs.org. Walking the Bible is available on videocassette or DVD. The companion book to the program is also available. To order, call PBS Home Video at 1-800-PLAY-PBS.
This program was made possible by contributions to your PBS station from viewers like you. Thank you.
We are PBS.
The influence that KPBS has had on my life personally and professionally has been quite substantial. I maintain my relationship with KPBS and my financial support because I totally believe in what they're offering me. There is so much going on KPBS that everybody, no matter what you have to give, should support something that is so willing to support them.
The automobile. It roared onto the scene at the dawn of the 20th century, changing our entire way of life. In the span of a decade, the horseless carriage grew into an essential feature of modern life in San Diego.
The first car, I think, to appear in San Diego was about 1900. And progressively, by 1903, there was, I think, 3 or 4 cars owned here in San Diego. And
and the connections between an object and an empty space, or an object in relationship to another object. The space has been made important in terms of relationships.
From the Viterbi Family Digital Broadcast Center, this is KPBS, High Definition Television for San Diego. This is KPBS San Diego, a broadcast service of